All of us have at least tried to play the fan-favorite Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or as it's popularly known, CSGO, at least once in our life. While some people don't like the game, for others, it became a regular part of their lives, one they could afford to live without. Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to take a look at how things would have turned out if CSGO had not existed, so let us begin. CSGO took the world by storm back when it was released in 2012. The game quickly became an international sensation and a common name in households all over the globe. Every day, more and more players join the game, and it can be said that it is perhaps one of the most influential games that have come out in the last 10 years. But what if Counter-Strike Global Offensive didn't exist? This is a question I've asked myself several times because without the impact this game had on my life, it's difficult to think where I'd be now. But that won't stop me from attempting to answer it in this video. Consider what would have happened if Counter-Strike Source had been the most recent game in the series before CSGO. The player base would have been split between CSS and the original 1.6 edition, and this would have likely persisted to this day, with both games maintaining a tiny but dedicated fan base. Much like they do today, 1.6 has over 10,000 active players, whereas the Source in Europe has only 4,000 on average, which has stayed stable for the previous several years. Without CSGO, I believe these two games would have more active players because none of them would have switched to CSGO. I don't believe these games would be less popular now if CSGO hadn't been created. However, I am aware that some of the older titles have popular custom modes that are still being played today. So, it's possible that people discovered Counter-Strike because of CSGO, but then decided to play older games for various reasons. It could have gone either way, but I believe that more people would still be playing older games if CSGO didn't exist. I'm not sure what the esports scene would look like today if this hadn't been the case. It's difficult to picture these games ever making it to arenas without a large crowd. However, Counter-Strike tournaments existed before CSGO, but they were much smaller. The esports scene has evolved tremendously since 2012, and it's difficult to picture previous Counter-Strikes remaining relevant when there are so many newer titles with active communities and motivated creators. Counter-Strike would have still made an appearance on LANs, such as the Epic and Insomnia events in the UK, which are still going on, or at least would have been if there hadn't been a pandemic. That's a chance that Valve would have made another newer Counter-Strike title. Again, this is hard to imagine, and I think the only reason we got CSGO was that Valve wanted to import the Counter-Strike franchise towards consoles. CSGO was released 8 years after the Source and is currently 10 years old. But it's hard to believe that Valve will replace it with a new Counter-Strike game anytime soon. CSGO has proven that a multiplayer game can remain relevant for years if supported by its developers. How many similar games have followed in Counter-Strike's footsteps in this regard, building a loyal player base that sticks around for years after the game was first released? However, this opens up new possibilities. What if CSGO wasn't needed? What if Source slowly evolved into what CSGO is today based on the same engine? After all you have to do is play the original CSGO to see that it's a totally different piece now. Who's to say CSS couldn't have benefited from a similarly dramatic overhaul? The problem with this would be upsetting the player base who enjoyed the game it was before, but CSGO has changed a lot. I hadn't heard anyone complain that it isn't as good as it was when it originally came out. I believe Source was rescued from this fate because it had been ignored for so long that it was simpler for them to just build a new game instead. But it is fun to speculate what would have happened if CSGO hadn't been created, or what would have filled that hole instead. What would Valve have done? Or what would Hidden Path have spent 2010 to 2012 working on instead of CSGO? What games would CSGO's devoted fans have been playing, and how comparable would those games have been? These are all questions that do not have easy answers. Many of the features included in CSGO may also be found in Valve's other games. Dota 2 includes a matchmaking system, and Team Fortress 2 had custom equipment long before CSGO was published. The success of CSGO skins and cases cannot be emphasized, and it will undoubtedly inspire the integration of similar systems into other games in the industry. I believe such titles would have made it eventually, but the success of CSGO must have accelerated that process. Would we have seen titles like Valorant, and would they have been the same if it hadn't been for CSGO? I cannot say much about how CSGO has impacted other games, but one thing is certain. It set up the expansive gaming culture we see today. In 2012, the gaming culture altered substantially. While it has been possible to stream games for a few years, mostly on sites like Ustream and Justin TV, the introduction of Twitch in 2011 was a watershed moment for gaming. Twitch was in the heart of a bidding war between Amazon and Google just 3 years after it opened its digital doors, eventually selling to the former for $970 million. The same year, Valve, the creator of Counter-Strike, became active in the game's esports scene. Previously, the game's esports sector had piqued the developers' interest. Valve was likely focused on its other franchises and expanding the vast Steam marketplace. While CSGO marked a significant shift in the game's player base, it also represented a significant shift in the way the game's creators supported the esports scene. The game's 2013 Arms Deal update, which featured the game's immensely important weapon skin system and marketplace, exemplifies this trend. The esports weapon case, which was included in this update, hinted at major ambitions for the game's competitive future. A part of all proceeds from the esports weapon case will go toward prize pools at forthcoming CSGO esports tournaments across the world. The shoe ultimately dropped a few weeks later. DreamHack announced the inaugural CSGO Major, a $250,000 competition partially supported by microtransactions. ESL quickly re-entered the fray, declaring its ESL 1 Katowice and ESL 1 Cologne events to be majors as well. After 2 years of success, Valve began enlisting the help of other organizations to hold majors, beginning with Major League Gaming, MLG, in 2016. With this alteration, the prize fund was increased to $1 million. Since then, majors have been requested from E-League 2017 and 2018, PGL 2017, and FACEIT 2018. After a 7-year hiatus, Intel Extreme Masters will hold another major next year. It's worth remembering that the major's third-party hosts change each year at Valve's discretion. Every year, tournament organizers make a pitch to the developer for which of the 2 majors will be held. Today, these tournaments have grown even bigger, with multiple games now being played in them. Without CSGO, it's probable that Valve would have never become interested in the gaming scene, and we would have probably seen such a rise in esport culture, and the world would have been a very different place. So that's all the time we had today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and to hit the bell icon on your way out. Adios!